Freddie, when was your last Wimbledon?
Playing?
Yeah.
2019. I was there for 2021, but had coronavirus and was in the hotel for 15 days instead of playing.
So 2019, what would you say about the court surface at Wimbledon in 2019? Speed-wise?
2019. So let me see where I played. I felt like back then, the courts in front of center court were a little bit slower than the ones in the back. But I would still say it was pretty slow. Yeah, I do remember in the second round we played Skopsky and JP Smith, and there were 3 tie breaks. I don't think there were any breaks, so it still plays a bit fast. But I did feel increasingly that it got slower and slower and slower.
What did you think of this year, Calv, speed-wise?
I mean, it's definitely the slowest of the grass tournaments that I went to. It's noticeably slower than Eastbourne, but Eastbourne is rapid. I think I didn't. I mean, I don't know. People might not know. I knackered my hand on at Queen's tournament, so I basically didn't hit anything. Not that I ever usually hit loads of balls when the lads are together, but I think there was, like Freddie said there, like a variation in the courts. Like I know that we went and like everyone wants to get on the match courts before to practice on the match courts the week before or the few days before, but they notoriously don't cut those so much because they want to protect them. So the grass is longer on those courts that they let you practice on before. So then automatically slower because of that. There was a lot of rumours going around before the tournament that this year the courts were faster than they have been. But from my experience, that wasn't the case. And we also heard, somebody told me that the morning of the final that they'd been hearing that centre was much slower than the other courts, but there were probably less rallies in the final than there were in any of the other matches. So it's kind of difficult to tell, but what I'd say is definitely slower than the other grass tournaments, but I still think, they're still grass courts fundamentally. I think for me that the main difference is from a few years ago is the ball. The ball is noticeably bigger, and that has slowed it down a bit, but it's still tough to return on them.
Yes, especially in doubles, but I also feel like more and more people are getting more and more comfortable playing from the back now in doubles as well. And
55% of the top 100 apparently serve and stay back.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
and also the introduction of the kick serve on grass is highly efficient now. Effective. So I don't know if it's just because people haven't used it that much before, but I felt like the last few years that got more and more effective. Like the kicker would really take off, but I don't remember ever having played teams that really stayed back. But I see it now, of course, when they play that a lot of teams actually stay back a lot.
Yeah, I think interesting in Purcell and Thompson, they stay on return games. They went both back on both serves, which I don't think we've experienced at all since this year. It's normally, a lot of players go both back on first return, but these were the first ones and they were doing it all tournament. We knew to expect that. They were going both back on both first and second. I guess they knew that their strengths were from the back, but there are more pairs who are doing that. But there are still, there are still, a lot of the top guys. I'm saying that. I'm looking at the top 100, like Zeballos and Granolas, I guess, mix it up a bit. They'll do both. Henry serve and volleys on both serves 100% of the time. He never stays back. Harry mixes it up.
I feel like Zeballos never comes in.
Well, it's funny, Fred, because Zeballos and Granolas are a strange pair because they're number one in the world, but we've only played them once, and we only knew we were playing them on the about an hour before we played them on the morning in Rome, and so I've never actually scouted them, and I've never played them, so I haven't seen loads of them, if you know what I mean. I've only seen them in passing, in the odd point when I've watched them, and I've always been thoroughly impressed with them, but. Pavic serve and volleys on every serve. Aravallo rarely serve and volleys, although he's got one of the best serves in the game.
But even a guy like Neil Skopsky is staying back a lot. That would never happen like back in the day.
I mean, it's interesting because Luke, who I coach, has over the last year has kind of changed to staying back a lot more. But that's because, I mean, with Luke, it's that his strength is his ground strokes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Luke, like we had discussions even over the course of Wimbledon in the warm-up tournaments. We suggested like looking at maybe staying, because he was serving volleying first, staying back second. But I thought maybe that, we suggested him staying back a lot more on both. But, I think in the end he ended up mixing it up and doing it quite well. But yeah, a lot of, I'm trying to think like Mike, I think mixes it. I think Mike stays back a couple, Mike Venus stays back quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely gone more that way.
Jamie Murray doesn't.
But there will always be exceptions to the rule. What? But are you asking because you had any particular observation when you were there?
I just thought the courts were unbelievably slow.
I think what's interesting with Wimbledon
unbelievably
rails,
so.
One of the things I always find interesting, Keno, is that when on any other grass surface you push, you go down. If you go down and touch the surface, if you push your finger in, like you can feel that the ground has a bit of give on it. At Wimbledon, it genuinely feels like the grass is growing out of concrete. Like there's no give in the ground at all. It's rock solid underneath it. And I don't know, they must do something specifically for that.
The ball was, it felt to me, and what I actually spoke to a couple of people on this, because obviously the guys are serving maybe 10, 15, 20% faster, whether they're getting through. I didn't see many of the women serving through the court. It felt like there was a lot of balls that were sticking. They were hitting the surface and sticking. And the other thing that I observed is when it hit the lines, and I know there's always a bit of a check when it hits the lines. I thought the check was quite dramatic.
Yeah, 100%. That was more pronounced this year than I've ever seen it before.
Yeah, and it really caused people a problem. It was like if you hit a line serve, it was almost you got the point. Because it was like everyone was just so incredibly early on the ball. But yeah, I thought that was, I just thought it was quite interesting the way that it had gone, and it certainly didn't feel very grassy, very.